from the mountains and forests of northern Arizona. I am up here spending time with my family, but of course, would never miss my time with all of you. So super excited because today is a funny and entertaining topic, and that's celebrity NDAs. The idea of celebrities using NDAs has been around for a very long time, but more and more those NDAs and the celebrities are making headlines. Now, I actually had to trim it down because there were so many to choose from, but we're going to keep this one kind of simple and get into some of the good stuff. So let's dive in because there's more about celebrities using NDAs than just that, famous people get to use them. So, what does our action packed day look like? Here it is. We're going to go through some practical stuff about why celebrities even use NDAs and what that means for small businesses, but also look at 5 specific celebrity NDA stories and what we as business owners can learn from these experiences and headlines to help us better navigate the world. Because guess what? Even celebrities make blatant mistakes sometimes, and we can totally avoid that for our businesses. So, and then of course, at the end of this, you're going to get a wonderful freebie from me. And guess what? It's going to be in the NDA category. So stick around for that. We'll also have open Q&A for any questions you might have. Now, who the hell am I? Why am I fun and exciting to hear from? And why would I have any idea that I know about NDAs? So I am a licensed attorney, longtime small business consultant, and also an award-winning sales rep. I am Acacia Thornton, the CEO legal coach. NDAs, being a huge part of business, have been around through my entire career, even before I went to law school. So I've been looking at these things, negotiating them, writing them, drafting them from scratch sometimes for around 20 years. So I've seen a few things, and now let's see what celebrities see too. Now, first, what is an NDA? An NDA is a signed document of somebody agreeing not to disclose or misuse the information they're given access to, or what they hear, what they learn, text messages, emails, things like that. What's great about NDAs is once you have one set for your situation, it's free to use over and over and over again. It's not something that costs money. So it's great because you get so many benefits from it, particularly making sure your information doesn't end up in the hands of people you don't want it to, or that you get to control the timing of when it goes into people's hands. And of course, that other people can't profit from you. And you get to do that for free. So super awesome. So that's what an NDA is. Now, why do celebrities use NDAs? One, open communication and trust. See, when we know that there's a document preventing somebody from abusing the situation, or if anyone's been in a familial argument, or loved ones, relationships, dating, all of those things, sometimes people take information after the fact and change it, shift it, see it differently. Not always wrong, but differently. And what happens over time is different than when we shared information with somebody. And what an NDA allows us to do is be open and honest, communicate honestly with the other side. And for our celebrities, this means going on dates and being honest about who they really are, not worrying about the brand image they have out there, not worried about how they may have changed over the years, right? Think of child celebrities, who they were when they were teenagers, different in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Justin Bieber's a great example. He's definitely changed at least his brand, if not personally, over his maturity. And so being able to protect how you're seen on the outside, but also who you get to be on the inside, and know that the other side is not in this relationship or having these opportunities with you to be mischievous or disheartening or to take advantage of it because they're willing to sign something that says that they're not going to do that. Another reason celebrities use it is others can't profit from their name. I mean, how much millions does like TMZ and the juicy gossip columns get when we get those little bit of tidbits of like, whoa, what's happening out there? And the truth is, we don't even know if it's right or wrong, accurate, inaccurate. It doesn't matter. Having that inside information to somebody that's really popular, a brand, that personal brand that we know, possibly love or love to hate, make sure that a third party can't profit from that. And so that is really important for these celebrities. It also gives them the space to be human. When who you are is available to be on the front page of every news article, it's not fair that you always have to hold to your reputation. You always have to hold to your brand, or that you feel you have to be perfect. It's just not human. We all make mistakes. We all need that space to be open, honest, and be who we are, good, bad, or ugly. Everybody has good and bad days. And it's only fair that celebrities get to do that too. And an NDA allows them the space to be them freely. And last but not least, it protects their business. Celebrities make a name for themselves. Their name, their face is all part of their business. And if somebody can just come along and reuse any part of who they are, their family life, and so on without their permission, particularly to profit from it, that's not fair to the celebrity themselves. So while celebrities may sometimes be seen as bad in using NDAs, because we've definitely seen them use NDAs to try to shield things from getting out there, including crimes, the hashtag Me Too uh, phase was really, I mean, still ongoing, but that really brought to light a lot of things that people were trying to use NDAs to hide behind. And so that is something that we're going to see in today as well. But there's a lot of reasons why people, particularly celebrities, might want to be using these NDAs. So let's get into our first story. Jack Harlow, the rapper singer, he spoke to Us Weekly saying that he uses NDAs whenever he is about to date somebody or have friends or kind of get into those personal relationships with somebody, become and allow himself to be who he is, because he wants to establish the idea, quote, my texts aren't for your friends, right? It is human nature to share with people that we trust. And so when we share with people we trust, and then they share with people they trust, the truth is you don't know who that second and third connection is. You don't have a contract with them. You don't have a way to stop, shape, and control the message about how your perspective got out, right? We've all maybe written a text message and it got read a different way than we intended it. Well, that's not fair that suddenly that gets to go out there. And this is really big in business that we can learn from Jack's approach here because sharing confidential information is part of the human experience, but that doesn't mean you don't have those rights to it. You want to have those rights. And this brings up the idea in business that breaches are not always intentional. They're not always malicious and they're not intended to harm. How many times do we go to and tell our best friend something and then they go and tell our ex or they go and tell our other friend and you'd be like, oh my God, I told that to you in secrecy. And then the other side be like, well, it didn't, I don't know why you'd want to keep that secret. That didn't, people perceive things differently when they receive the message. Your pricing might be something you want to keep behind closed doors. Other companies post their pricing, bam, right on their website. What is valuable to one person may not always make sense as valuable or be as common sense obvious to the next. And so a lot of breaches are not intentional. They're just meant to be that trusting people and sharing with the people we trust. Just it keeps going outside of your control and ability to do something. So the real key is that with an NDA, you decide who can have access to what and when, right? You decide that. And that's what the NDA does for you and why we can learn from Jack's approach and his like, hey, I want to trust you enough to be able to share things with you, but I don't want you to just be able to take those and share those with whomever you want without my permission. So great lesson there from Jack Harlow. Ooh, Raven Simone, actress producer. Raven has been around. She's a total millennial zennial like myself. So she's kind of somebody that I've grown up with, very parallel in age. And she has her potential date sign an NDA. And I love this. She's like, when do you decide when you want to have a date sign? And she had told Us Weekly she likes to do it before things get intimate. And we're going to look into how that's a great lesson here for us as well. But she did add that using NDAs can feel so impersonal. She doesn't really like it as a personal thing, but she appreciates that for business, It's necessary. And this kind of gives us some great opportunities to learn from her because the keys here were that she does it before things get intimate, right? Before. That is really, really key. And it's really interesting that she chooses this time because not only is it before the information is shared of any value, but also that she's already building this relationship. It's not the day she meets the person, but she's already learning to trust this person. And even in that trust, she chooses to bring in an NDA. I think a lot of times we're already like, I already trust this person. It's not a big deal. It actually still is because the more we trust, the more we share, the more things happen over time, right? Maybe the first time you share, it's just this. But once you start to share something on a monthly or weekly basis, the other side has insight into who you are and what your business is over time. That also builds up and shows them other things. And she does feel that sometimes injecting a contract into trustworthy relationships and partnerships can feel impersonal, but she overcomes that personal feeling to do what's right for her business. And I think that that's something that we can learn from as business owners as well, is that we have to do what's right at the right times, even though we may feel a little uncertain in who we are inside. And I think that that's really two great lessons that we learn here from Raven Simone for her approach to NDAs with the people in her life to help protect her business before things get intimate and doing what is right versus how it personally may feel, particularly as we're building trust with someone. Candy Burris. Oh man, talk about the drama mama, right? This girl can bring life and action and whoa to a lot. If you're not familiar with her, she is from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And our example is one that she said to her husband about a threesome. She has her husband and the people related in her circle and in her husband's circle sign NDAs. But the example she used was about a three-way. She said, quote, to her husband, I might want to throw myself into your threesome because I know no one is going to find out, right? And I love this. She appreciates the benefits that she gets by having NDAs in place because she has the space to play, try new things, and explore without the fear of failure being out there, without it getting the message getting out, without her controlling if and when the message goes to the public. So she's somebody who understands the benefits of using an NDA, even though we may or may not agree with her particular subject matter for them. But this is such a great opportunity for us as business owners because it means that when there's an NDA in place, you can explore new opportunities, whether that be with new partnerships, working with your competitors. See, the third one here is collaborate with your competitors. You can try new things. Maybe you're going to go and you're going to fail big, or maybe you're going to go and build something amazing. But you need time to do that. You need a space to build those relationships, have those open communications. Great ideas don't become great products instantly overnight sometimes. Sometimes we need that research and development phase, that collaboration phase, and that might be weeks, months, or even years. And when you have an NDA in place, you know you can go through that without the fear of it getting out. Imagine you're working on some big collaboration to build a new product, particularly maybe even with one of your competitors, right? Let's say you're working with a potential competitor, you're going to bring something to market together. You want to make sure, one, you can trust this competitor because you don't want, they might have to get some access to some of your other things along the way that are tangential to this project. Well, you don't want them abusing that. Your NDA is going to help keep that safe and set those boundaries. But also, as you build this collaboration, you want to control when you get to send out that press release, when you get to put it on social media, when you get to send that newsletter. You want to control the message when it is ready to be the most impactful for all the effort and work you've put in. And without an NDA, you don't control that. So We just learned a big one there from Candy. Now let's shift a little bit. These next two, we're going to see a little bit more of the practicalities and when it comes to NDAs. And let's start with Tiger Woods. We're all probably familiar with him, but in case you're not, he is the celebrity golfer who's made multiple comebacks, despite his many things going on outside the course. Now, he had his ex-girlfriend Erica Herman sign an NDA, and they were working together. She was a manager at one of his restaurants while they were having a relationship, and she signed that NDA. Well, after the relationship was over, she wanted to file a sexual harassment suit against him, but she had this NDA, and she had a few issues with this NDA. The first was she had to file another lawsuit just to find out what the NDA said she could and couldn't do. She didn't have full clarity on what was in her NDA and what was not. Her and her lawyer also weren't totally certain if she ever signed the NDA. Huh, well, that's a weird one. If you had proper record keeping, you would know. But also, when it came to that court case and to that hearing, Tiger Woods' counsel presented what they believe the NDA that Erica had signed was. But Erica and her lawyer were like, we don't think that's the right NDA. But they had no way to refute that. So the court saw one party's side of that NDA and it had to hold to it because there was not enough evidence and information from Erica's side in order to do much. And this brings up a few things. One, understand the terms of what you are agreeing to. There's a little bit more regarding Erica's that should she have had just some basic NDA terms in there, she would have been able to carry on with her sexual harassment suit without the second suit about the NDA. There was a failure to properly review her NDA and make sure basic core things were in there. And that is on her. And if she had counsel, her counsel as well for not doing that, for blindly signing what was in front of her, whether she did or not, we don't know. But it does point out the concerns regarding signing something we're not really sure what we're agreeing to. But there's a few other things that we can learn from is keep a copy. Anything you ever sign, even though it's with somebody you trust, right? She was dating Tiger. She probably loved him very much at the time, and he probably loved her very much at the time. That doesn't mean that we do sign things blindly because the term of that NDA is longer than that. Maybe they'd end up married, maybe they wouldn't, but we don't know. We can't always see into the future. And now this is the future we have. This does bring up another point, NDAs and concealing crimes. Little by little, it is becoming invalid in NDAs to protect and hide crimes with them, particularly sexual harassment, sexual aggression, and those types of crimes. NDAs are now no longer allowed to be used to hide that. But Tiger Woods, sorry, there's a beautiful bird singing outside. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm such a bird person that I'm like slightly distracted. um, but with Tiger Woods, like she wanted to file sexual harassment, but she didn't have enough evidence, and she didn't have enough clarity in her NDA, and the combination meant that she couldn't move forward. So it is important that when you have somebody else sign an NDA, be mindful that it does not shield you from your crimes. And that list of crimes that are no longer protected by NDAs is growing and growing. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's an ongoing trend with that. So embezzlement and other things, don't expect your NDA to hide those because whistleblower and other things are not allowed to be prohibited by NDAs either. So being mindful of that, but also being mindful on the other side that if there's any of those things, you're going to need to make sure that you know what you're signing and that you have the ability to act to the way you need to act. And then, of course, keep that copy so that you know and can reference what you signed, especially if you need it in court. All right, we have one more big example before we get to your freebie and Q&A. Uh, the producer for The Apprentice. I actually don't have this guy's name, although I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come out soon. So The Apprentice was the show that Donald Trump was a part of, right? It was a big show that made him popular. And the NDAs from that time have now expired. The term of them is over. And what that means is that when an NDA ends, if there is not another law protecting the information, which usually only intellectual property and trade secrets are protected after the fact, everything can now be disclosed. And that is what is happening with what happened on set with The Apprentice, is that information about how Donald Trump behaved or may have not behaved, right? We don't know whether it's valid or not. We just know they're now allowed to say their opinions. They're allowed to give those details because the NDAs they signed are no longer valid. They have expired naturally. And this is a huge one. When the NDA ends, the information can be shared. I'm going to repeat that. When your NDA ends, the information can be shared unless it is explicitly called out in the NDA what is to survive. And usually, what is to survive is limited to those laws like trade secret and IP. There's exceptions to every rule, but it's something to be mindful of because we can't see into the future. But you probably have an idea of where your business is going, where your brand is going, and where you as a person are headed. Many of us have our 5 and 10 year plans. Well, if you're signing a 5 year NDA, where do you plan on being? How is that going to fit in? This is one of those long term versus short term thinking. We think about what it is today, but not what it's going to be over its term. So, being mindful of the term set in those NDAs, how things can change for you, your product, your relationship with this party, whether it's a supplier, a customer, a, um, an investor, a competitor, not just for you, but how might things change for them? What's their anticipated 5 year plan? What's their anticipated 10 year plan? And is there anything there that you want to be mindful of over the term of your NDA as well? And then, of course, the impacts when an NDA ends, be prepared for that. Hopefully, you're not doing anything that people would want to come out and disclose to everyone, being like, hey, finger pointing time now, if you're doing business the right way and you're acting as an ethical person. But that doesn't ever mean there aren't haters out there. And so your NDA is what's going to kind of keep your boundaries set over the long term. All right, time to find that chat box. Get in there. Also, time to give you a free NDA. This is where I keep and give my mutual non-disclosure NDA to all of my clients. This is an NDA drafted by myself that also comes with a free customization guide. I'm going to read it to you so you don't even have to read it because I'd never let you sign anything that you haven't read, right? We're going to learn from Erica Harris on that one and so on. So do you know you can go ahead and grab that. Now let's get into some questions. Let's look into the chat. What do we have going on here? What kind of information do celebrity NDAs typically cover? So they're usually, take a step back. Under the law, anything that is non public can be classified as confidential information on the NDA. So anything that is non-public, and this applies for anybody, a company, a person, a celebrity, or otherwise, does not matter. So anything that is non-public that you decide to list in the definition of confidential information. Every NDA is going to have a definition of confidential information section, and that is what is included or protected. So if it's not listed there, it's not protected. But if it is listed there, it's protected. Celebrities, it all, like anything, comes down to the relationship. It could be like their financials, it could be their texts, it could be their communications. Hey, the existence of our dating relationship, everything that happens in the bedroom, all the stuff I disclosed to you about my family, all of those things can be in there. If it's somebody that's maybe also a business partner with them, like Erica was, right? She was a manager for one of Tiger's businesses, and she was his girlfriend. So her NDA would have been more robust and had a bigger scope covering probably both of those areas. So it really comes down to what you want to protect and what the celebrity wants to protect. But usually anything that they don't where they would want to control the message, or where they might be a person that is not something that everybody agrees with. Or like Candy Burris came out and said her threesomes. Some people would care about that, some people wouldn't. And so that type of a thing. What mattered there was that she controlled what message went out. It's not like somebody else got to go out and be like, hey, Candace is having all these threesomes on the side. This is what they're like. This is who the partner she's picking. This is she controlled what came out to what extent, and that was that. So it comes down to what you want in that. Yeah. Um, who? Who do they usually have sign their NDAs? Anybody. Anybody that might have access to them. I mean, we've heard of ones having their family members sign it, right? It sucks thinking that we have to do that. But and it's not that again that family, especially a good family member, is not going to go out and try to be malicious. It's just that they might be out there talking to their friends. Like if you have a famous brother and people know that, then they'll be like, "Oh, so what's going on with your brother?" Oh, and so on. So it's not always meant to be a bad thing. It's just to protect the boundary. So their family members, their friends, their dating, their business partners, their employees, um, temporary staff, like people come and do photography, their makeup artists, things like that. Anybody who might get to see them intimately or see those things where they just want to be human are usually the ones where they start to have those NDAs in place. Yeah. So, okay, so somebody's kind of mentioning, like we always hear this about the really big celebrities, but not the little celebrities. Right? It's not about, we don't know if a B list movie star is about to become a supermodel. We don't know if somebody who, like, what's her name? I'm blanking on her name, but the girl from Sansa Stark in Game of Thrones, right? That was her first main acting situation. She went from being undiscovered to huge overnight. And so if she had had NDAs before that, what's the tipping point, right? Is when you're B-list celebrity, a C-list celebrity, D-list, or when you get to A. I think following Raven Simone's uh, advice here is before things get intimate. So it's before your brand gets there, right? Don't wait until it's happened because now everything that's happened leading up to that, somebody else can go share. And we learn that with the Donald Trump apprentice example there with the term. So starting it now, well, you didn't have any of the information protected before, and so on. And also, if getting people to sign those NDAs might be a little difficult depending on the situation. And so you don't want that information to already be in somebody else's hands. And now, because you're popular and famous, they are incentivized to do something with it. Or get asked work questions by their friends. Like, hey, so this is your brother, right? Oh my gosh. And and asking you your friends and family questions now. Sorry, I'm kind of like blabbling there. Uh, but don't wait until you're famous. Don't wait until you're a multi-million dollar company. Do this the moment you're sharing something that you don't want public, which is why I'm a big believer that every single business owner, solopreneur, um, small business owner, it does not matter. Protect your ideas from day one. Because I'm doing a talk tomorrow. Tomorrow's talk, I got a big insider story that a client of mine tried to steal somebody else's information, and the NDA is what stopped it. That little guy, this guy who came up with a brilliant idea himself, when he went to pitch it, the big guys were like, "Well, we can do that." So they went and did that, spread it, and that guy was like, "Uh-uh, you signed an NDA. You have to pay me for that." So this little guy, this seriously this sole guy, I think he made this technology in his garage. Okay, and he was just starting to pitch it, would have lost the value of his brilliant idea if it wasn't for that NDA. So start small. Start when you feel small because baby, your ideas are not small. Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's get one last question in. Are they enforceable? Oh, I see two here. I'll kind of get to. Okay. Getting somebody to sign an NDA. So, two parts. When it comes to any contract in the United States and a majority of Western cultures like Europe, Canada, and so on, we have to have an exchange of value. Otherwise, the courts consider it a gift. And a gift is not a contract under the law. They have different rights and enforcement opportunities. So if somebody signs your NDA and they don't get anything of value back from you, it's considered a gift, not a contract, which means you don't really have the protections you intended. So we want to make this NDA a contract under the law. I'm using the word contract in the way that the courts define it, not the way we talk about it. In colloquial speak, when we have a signed piece of paper, we call that a contract. But that's not what the law says. The law has little requirements. And one of those is this exchange of value. Now, what's great though is that exchange of value does not have to be money. Woohoo! So, when it comes to mutual NDAs, and that's what I always recommend my clients use for any business agreements, right? With their customers, investors, suppliers, freelancers, and so on, is a mutual NDA. And what a mutual NDA is both parties are offering the exact same protections about the other one's information. Everything is literally mutual. Nobody is promising something the other one is not. Both parties' information gets to stay safe and treated the same way. What's great about that is because both parties are exchanging something of value, keeping stuff confidential, the legal requirement for having that be a contract is already met. So when you use a mutual NDA, that is already met. You simply just have to have that signed by both parties. That's there. Now, in the employee employer context, and I go into this a lot with my Boss from the Beach program, is that that's a little bit different because the employee is the one who has access to the company's information, which means the employee is the one promising to protect that information and not disclose it. It's one sided. The company doesn't promise that back. That would be weird. So, how do we give value to the other side? In the employment context, it's usually the opportunity to start the job. Hey, you want to start this job. We want you to start this job, but to do so, you have to sign confidentiality. The courts consider that value exchange. But later on, when they're already starting the job, or maybe they're leaving the job, what are other areas of this value exchange can you do? So you want them to promise not to disclose. Other areas are like you might give them benefits, you might give them training, letters of recommendation, anything that the other side would consider valuable where they are in that moment, right? An ongoing employee is going to have different value needs than a departing employee. But the key is there has to be something of value, but not money. I bring all of this up to answer the question of you can't just give your friends and family an NDA and say sign it. If it's a mutual one, okay. But if it's one sided, there does need to be that value exchange. When you have that, and this is to go to the other question about enforceability, I'm answering both questions right now. When you have a legally enforceable document, it's enforceable. And the only way it wouldn't be enforceable is if some part of it was illegal. And we brought one of these up earlier, like crimes. The courts are now saying, hey, you can't really hide behind an NDA to hide crimes because guess what? Crimes are illegal. If you're committing crimes, there's a public policy reason to know that and have that out there. So those types of things. But the rest of the NDA would remain valid, would be enforceable. And then we have like the FTC coming in saying non-competes are now unenforceable and illegal. And so if you have the properly structured NDA, well, only that paragraph would be unenforceable now, and the rest of it would remain in place. I also go into that in the Boss from the Beach because that's a little but that's another area where you want to kind of be mindful is the value exchange. If you have the value exchange and those signatures, it's enforceable, and it is enforceable all the way up until it's breaking a law. So I hope that answers all of your guys' questions. If you have any others, go ahead and put them in the comments below and I'll get to them, or you could always reach me at my website, CEOLegalcoach.com.